Welcome to the Wandiology podcast, where we learn and demystify astrology as a tool to gain a deeper understanding of our energetic signatures and our interactions with the world. Today, we are getting into Leo through the houses. And for those who are coming here for the first time, the houses are the themes of life in astrology. So let's get into it. So there are 12 houses, and we'll start with the first. So the first house is an angular house. It's one of the more visible houses. The first house is a house of self. So basically, how do you appear to other people, right? What is your appearance? What is your demeanor? How do you carry yourself, right? And so Leo is a very bold sign, among the boldest of the zodiac. They're very confident, they're very flamboyant, they're very loud and regal and overbearing and stubborn, because Leo is also a fixed fire sign. So this gives someone who has a commanding presence, right? So the physical presence commands a room. They are dramatic, they are loyal, they're courageous. They also require to be appreciated and to be seen, right? So you have to acknowledge them. So this is for Leo risings. Make sure that the Leo risings in your life know they're appreciated. Tell them. Leos love to hear, to be gifted, right? So show them. They're also playful and childlike, because Leo rules over children, right? That's Leo in the first house. Moving on to Leo in the second house, these are your Cancer risings. So, i.e. me. So having Leo in the second house is about what we value. So it's about our finances, it's about our possessions, our money, right? And our values. So, for example, for me, how do I approach money and finances? So for me, I like to be very giving when I have it, right? So that seems like gifting other people, thinking about what other people would like to be gifted, but it also means me loving to spend money on beautiful things, on flamboyant things, on the best skincare, on the best hair. And best is relative. It doesn't mean most expensive. It means what makes me really happy deep down, right? So that's Leo in the second. It's just a very bold approach to money matters and finances. We have to look out for overindulgence as well, right? And I don't know, kind of being boastful, we also have to look out for that. Then moving on to Leo in the third house. The third house has to do with communication, thoughts, the mind, right? So, how do Leos communicate, or how does Leo energy manifest in the third house? And here you get bold immediately, a bold speaker, a confident speaker, someone who has really no problem asserting their opinions, right? Just watch out for being domineering, right? A lot of fire energy can tend to come out as a bullying kind of force, because fire energy is very intense and in your face. So just watch out for, include others, right? Even within your communication process, your thought process, just remember to include other people, but don't stop being bold in your communication. This is not about other people being insecure about you. It's about you just knowing, having discernment about when do I have to be bold, when can I reel it back, and things of the sort, right? So moving on to the fourth house, this is the house of home. So it's how are we around our home? And Leo energy in the fourth house gives a lot of children. First of all, Leo rules over children. Leo energy is very playful. So it's these are people who someone who probably even has a game room, right? Someone who loves games, loves to play with their children, loves to just have fun around family. Someone who also loves to curate the home in very bold aesthetics. Like it's just giving like Sonko, like the gold and just flamboyance and just because Leo is very sometimes it's not even like curated flamboyance. It's just I want to be flamboyant because I can. Yeah. Because it's in my might. And so it's very regal, like kings and queens. That's the energy of Leo. Yeah. And that's the fourth house. So moving on to the fifth house, which is the house of romance, the house of children, the house of play. So Leo is the fifth sign of the zodiac, and this corresponds with the fifth house naturally. So having Leo in the fifth is perfect. It means you have an Aries rising, and so Leo naturally falls in your fifth house. Shout out Ngeleche. So these are very creative people. So moving on to Leo in the fifth house, and the fifth house rules over romance, play, children, creativity, right? And because Leo is the fifth sign of the zodiac, it corresponds with the fifth house. And so here it's at home in the fifth house. And so think about um, very flirtatious people, okay? Probably people who love children. They don't have to be your children biologically, but you have an affinity for children, right? Or children have an affinity for you. And so, whether it's babysitting, whether it's an interaction with children, teaching children, that's what this is giving. It's also giving very flamboyant person, a highly creative person. And so these are our Aries risings because, right, it will fall in that order. So if you have an Aries rising, you have Leo in the fifth. And so you're probably very creative, highly flirtatious, highly playful. These are people who just exude joy, right? And the people who are also probably very into acting, film, modeling, anything that requires a spotlight. They're very comfortable there. Ngeleche has Leo in the fifth, I think. And yeah, this is giving you babes. So moving on to the sixth house, which is a house of health, um, kind of routine, your daily routine. Okay, what you do on a daily. What is it? Do you wake up, do this, go running, or do you just laze around and then do art or whatever it is? And so having Leo here feels like this is a very playful energy. So the sixth house is more, it's Virgo ruled. So Virgos are very routine people. Like, this is what we're going to do. We have a plan. But Leo energy is the other way. It's like spontaneity, fire. Let's do this until we burn out and then we move to the next thing. And that's why creativity is in this sign and house also, the fifth house, that is. So here you get someone who maybe their daily habits, in their day to day, they are a creator, right? They do some sort of creative work, or they do work regarding children, because the sixth house is also about work. What do you do for work, right? Not your career per se, but like the kind of like habits or actions you do on a day to day. And so this is more about being playful on a day to day basis, being creative, being spontaneous. So I would advise anyone with a Leo in the sixth to be more spontaneous with their schedules and to incorporate art or film or play somewhere in their day to day so that they just feel like they can do that on a routine, right? Because routine can be a bit difficult for you. Then moving on to the also something else to note, because the sixth house is also about health and Leo rules the heart, you have to watch out for heart problems. This also might be applicable to people generally with Leo placements. Anywhere you have like your placements, especially in the sixth house, which has to do with health, or if you have like a stellium of placements, if you have maybe a lot of Leo energy somewhere or a lot of Cancer energy somewhere, you have to watch out for health problems within that area, right? So for example, here Leo falling in the sixth, you have to watch out for health matters about the heart. Okay? Yeah, so do your exercise, take care of your bodies, etc. Then moving on to the seventh house, which is the house of relationships, or rather, the qualities you look for in your significant other. The seventh house is also about business partnerships, right? It's Libra ruled. So it's about where you come together and commit. And Leo energy is very non committal, I'll tell you that. Yes, they can commit, but they're very non committal, I'll tell you that. So Leos love to be adored. And even within the context of adoration and commitment, they don't go together. Because just know when you're committing to someone, it's not always about adoration, and it can't be. And that's why Leos prefer flings rather than this is my partner, right? Because it is quite impossible to get like consistent admiration from just one person, you know? Commitment is more than that. It's more than adoration. So the lesson here for people with Leo in the seventh is to, if you want commitment, fine. If you don't want to commit, then perfect. You can be playful, you can date however many people you want. But if you have Leo in the seventh, it's about knowing your limits and kind of adjusting also yourself so that you can achieve your goals. If that is committing to someone, it needs to not only be about the adoration, okay? Yeah. It also means communicating what you need. If it's that adoration, if it's the gifts, communicate that. And also people who are in relationships with people who have Leo placements or Leo in the seventh, just know these people love to be adored. It's what they're here for. So adore them, gift them, right? But you have to meet halfway, okay? So then moving on to Leo in the eighth house. And the eighth house is it's giving trauma. The eighth house is one of like the dark topics houses. It's to do with painful lessons, transformations, trauma, sex, and intimacy, right? And I feel like someone with Leo in the eighth will be very playful, right? But also requiring intimacy requires more than the superficial. And please, my Leos, don't jump me for this, but intimacy requires way more than the superficial. You have to be willing to get outside of yourself for you to be intimate with other people, right? So don't be the places where you need to go outside of yourself. And I know that's very hard to tell a Leo to come outside of yourself and meet someone else somewhere. And that's why Leo is the opposite sign of Aquarius, because Aquarius is very group dynamics. Like, we're doing this, we're a collective, it's we. But Leo is very much I, and that's why a lot of people call them narcissists, which I don't think they're narcissists. Okay, Leo moons maybe, but yeah, but Leo is just like that. They're ruled by the sun. You don't expect the sun to move its place and Mercury comes there or another planet, right? But in that respect, the task is harder for you in meeting other people where they're at. So if you require to be intimate, just know you have to come outside of yourself, right? And humility. I feel like for people with Leo in the eighth house, to be able to take painful lessons in stride, you need to be humble. And Leo does not like being humble. It doesn't. So it just makes the lesson that tougher for you. But once you can achieve humility, and not in a let everyone step on you. No, in a, okay, maybe this is what I need to learn now so that I can achieve something better in that way. And so for the eighth house, Leo in the eighth, humility. Okay. So moving on to but with respect to sex, these make very amazing partners, sexual partners, because they're playful, they're flirtatious, they're creative. They'll go out of their way to love you in beautiful ways. Leos love in the best ways I've ever been loved, practically. Taurus come very close. Okay, Taurus first, then Leo. But yeah, you get the point. So amazing sexual partners as well. So moving on to the ninth house, which is the house of mental pursuits, long distance travel, higher education, and things of the sort. And so having Leo here means you may be traveling a lot long distance because of your creative abilities. You may be traveling a lot with your children, right? You may be traveling a lot for film. This is giving like a traveling filmmaker, right? You're very imaginative because the ninth house is also about mental pursuits, and Leo is about being creative. So these two put together just give you a very, someone who has a beautiful imagination, someone who travels the world and films it, and they take abundance everywhere they go with them. So moving on to the 10th house, which is the house of legacy. This is the most visible house, right? It's the highest point in your chart, which is also called the midheaven, okay? So the midheaven is the cusp of your 10th house, where your 10th house starts. And having Leo here, my partner has a Leo MC, and this is also giving filmmaker as a legacy. It's giving actor as a legacy. It's giving creative, painter, artist, whatever form of creativity you'd like to tap into will be part of your legacy. Your legacy can also be your children, okay? It can also be the people you date, right? Or all of those things could have to do with your legacy and what you're meant to do in this lifetime and what you're meant to be recognized for, right? So if you have a Leo MC, just embrace the spotlight. You have to. Okay? It's not always about hiding, okay? Because Leo does not want you to hide, and you shouldn't. All right? So embrace the spotlight. Yeah. Then we have Leo in the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of social groups, friend groups, humanitarianism. Yes, and this is an Aquarius ruled house. So this might be a bit, I don't know. Having Leo here gives having a lot of friends, right? My sister has a Leo stellium in the 11th, which I think is so phenomenal, because especially if you're a secure Leo, which my sister has been for a long time, she has the best friend group. I kid you not. Like, I have always been so jealous. She has the best friend group, and they've been friends since high school, and it's just always so healthy and wholesome, and like, these people are in separate corners in the world, but they're best friends to each other. And Leo is very abundant, right? So, like, if you're an insecure Leo, stop. You have abundance within you. Don't be an insecure Leo. Like, it's literally just, it pisses me off when I see insecure Leos, because literally you have everything inside of you, right? So you shouldn't have problems connecting. You should not have problems connecting, because Leo is very outgoing, bold, confident. So you should be able to make friends easily. Just beware of, backstabbing and jealousy and things like that, which are very normal feelings. But beware of like sabotage, self-sabotage, and other people sabotaging you. Okay. Then moving on to the 12th house, which is our final house, and it's the house of dreams. It's the house of where we recluse. So isolation, it's the house of mental health, it's the house of what else? Just where we come back to ourselves. Okay. So at the end of the day, when you've been out with friends, when you've been out with partners, and so on and so forth, where do you come back to yourself and isolate? That's the 12th house, right? And having Leo here may be a bit, I don't know, it may feel a bit constrained because Leo energy is very extravagant, and the 12th house kind of requires you to constrain yourself, it limits you. I know Leos want to, a lot of Leos I know don't like consequences. Okay. They want to do things and just do them. And it's like, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But things like the 12th house remind you that there are consequences. And those consequences are for you alone, right? And so I feel like these lessons with Leo is like humility. It's where you come back to yourself and you can't be conceited. You have to be honest with yourself. Just to hear you whisper, hey boy, I wanna breathe your air more. Run my fingers through your hair. Moving on to Leo in the 12th house. The 12th house rules over privacy, mental health, isolation. This is where we go to isolate. So after we've met with friends, after we've met with children, after we've been at our careers, our jobs, this is where we come and we self-reflect. So having Leo here gives creativity, someone who loves to create by themselves in isolation, someone who is probably behind the scenes on stage, right? Like camera crew, kind of people, directors as well. Leo in the 12th can also be about ego and pride being your undoing. So you have to watch out for that. But this also gives a very creative dreamer. This is also the house of dreams, right? And so you can conjure up all kind of creations with Leo in the 12th. You may be a bit afraid of the spotlight, right? Because the 12th house is very hidden. It's to do with hidden things and also hidden enemies. So you have to watch out for that. You have to watch out for ops. Especially with Leo energy, you just have to watch out for jealousy and those things. That's Leo in the 12th. And that brings us to the end of Leo through the houses. And thank you so much for watching. You can find me on at Wandiology on socials, and you can find the podcast on at the Wandiology podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on the Virgo archetype. We're bringing it. Bye.